So, I'm going to actually walk down around here. I've got my little 2-minute countdown, and how about a round of applause, too, for Royster Productions again, folks. They're doing an incredible, incredible job. So, you know, to heck with our next speaker, I want to introduce you to his very hot fiancée, Gina, and you guys are going to get to know this couple. Our next speaker is a best-selling author with Jack Canfield, one of the most dynamic personalities that you'll ever meet. A big round of applause for Gina, first off. So John's got a few of his books here. I figured I'd pull Gina out of the audience and stand up. What's your name?
Bev.
Bev, how are you? Nice
Good.
to see you again. Are you having fun?
Yes.
Are you learning a lot?
I am.
Are you excited to be here?
I am.
Real excited?
I don't ever get...
Would you like something free?
I certainly would.
How about if we give her one of John's books? How's that sound? Thank you. Who here is shy? Somebody point to a shy person for me. Point to a shy person. We got somebody shy?
Too shy to tell you.
Come right up here. What's your name?
Linda.
Linda, welcome. Linda, say hi to the crowd.
Hi, crowd.
Are you enjoying yourself?
Yes.
Yeah? Are you learning a lot?
Yes, a lot.
What have you learned so far that's most dynamic for you? What's so exciting?
I'm excited about both the videos and the blogs.
Awesome, awesome. Would you like a book?
Sure.
Gina?
Thank you.
Big round of applause. Let's walk back here and see who we've got. I'm freaking the production crew out because I'm setting us all off whack here. I see somebody sitting back here. Look at this. Well, hi there. And what is your name?
Hello.
What's your name?
Lori.
Lori, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Everybody, big round of applause for Lori. So far for the event, what's been your favorite part?
I love the energy, all just understanding that the things that I'm doing well, and those things that I know that I'm not doing that, okay, I really need to do them.
So you've become a guru.
Yes.
And you know it's possible.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's why you're here, and we're going to be tracking your progress.
Fabulous.
So we're going to get a report card on you. Everybody, big round of applause. Another book for her. To give her a book. All right. So who else do we have here? Let's see. Right here, look at this darling young lady. How are you? What's your name?
Myrna.
Myrna?
Yes.
Are you having fun?
I am.
Are you learning?
A lot.
Okay.
I'm just starting, and it's overwhelming.
Nobody just starts. You're here. That's the biggest point, okay? You made it here. So so far, what have you learned, and what's the best part of the event so far for you? Not for me, for you.
Oh, my. So much. I need to do videos.
There you go. So you're going to start doing videos?
Yes.
Awesome. What else are you going to start doing?
Blogging.
You bet. And what's important is that you associate with everybody in this audience, because this is what it's about. It's about teamwork. It's about us lifting each other up and truly, you know, not quitting on the same day like we talked about. So you know what would make my day?
What?
Big round of applause, everybody. Give her a book. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to get to meet Gina. We've got a little surprise in store for you, but right now I'm going to bring her fiancé up, who is one of the most dynamic characters, you notice I said characters, that you'll ever meet. Multi-million-dollar earner in this industry, one of the best techno geeks that I know, and one of my dear friends who, you know, we just pick on each other left and right. Best-selling author, I could go on and on for hours about this gentleman. Came onto the scene with Pure Leverage, is just rocking it. Mr. Jon Gillardi!
The music, the moment you own it, you better never let it go. You only get one shot, do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You better lose yourself in the music, the moment you own it, you better never let it go. You only get one shot, do not miss your chance to blow. Cause opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You better lose yourself in the music, the moment you own it, you better never let it go. You only get one shot.
Can you guys all hear me okay? All right. Wow. Wow. The first pure leverage event. Who's excited so far? Come on, really, who's excited? All right. My book came out, like you saw, the one that was being given out 6 or 7 months ago. And so I've been doing a lot of different little speaking engagements. I normally speak on network marketing. I used to be a motivational speaker back in the late 90s, and you'll hear about my story. But a little problem happened, and nobody wanted me to be a motivational speaker anymore because being homeless was very hard to be a motivational speaker. So I've had my ups and downs and different things in the industry. Most of them because of stupid choices that I made. And you're gonna hear some stuff, but you know, first of all, I wanna go through some ground rules. Now, everybody's here, right? But you can be here, but you can't be present. What I mean by being present is you have to get involved, and maybe you're gonna hear 100 different things from me. And I jump around a lot. I'm not your traditional speaker. I say the word I've been thrown out of Toastmasters for it because they don't like that. And I really don't care because they don't have a best-selling book. So you're gonna hear a lot of different things, but not only do I want you to be present, but what I really want to go over some of the ground rules, do I have your permission to be transparent, real, and open with you? Yeah. All right. I'm not politically correct all the time, okay? If you guys ever follow my stuff on Facebook, you'll see I pretty much tell it like it is, and if you don't like it, I don't care if you're my best friend, I don't care if you're my family, even though I really don't have any family anymore, because I was kind of disowned, and I get kind of emotional about that. So if we go over those ground rules and you really want me to be open, I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a story about my life. And it's probably gonna be a little bit, you know, hard to understand of where I was and what I went through and what you see now. You know, everybody talks nice about me and different things now. You know, a lot of people I just say lie, which is really cool about me. But what you have to realize is that 26 years ago, when I started in this industry, I was sitting in an audience like this. And I was a traditional network marketer because there was no internet marketing back in the day. Things have gotten a lot easier. People had to order products from me and it was all kinds of crazy stuff. But I remember sitting out in the audience and watching people up on stage and say, man, I can't wait to be there one day. I wonder if I will. And thinking that, man, who were the parents of these people? Because they were born into this success. And I can tell you this, none of us were born into this success. Who out there right now is going through any kind of problems? I don't care if it's financial, spiritual. Is anybody not going through any problems in their life? Everybody has a perfect relationship and stuff like that. Now, my fiance sitting in the audience, she'll let you know after you can speak to her, Gina, that I am probably the easiest, most laid-back person to get along with on the planet. And everybody who knows me, I am very, you guys are supposed to laugh for the people who do know me. I am not easy to live with. I'm very, very demanding. But what you'll find out from me is that, you know, and I'm gonna go through, you know, some of the stuff, like I said, I'm gonna jump around. What you're gonna find out is that I've been here and I've been lower than this stage. Just to let you guys know here, I failed at everything I've ever done. What I mean by that is that I wasn't born in a poor family, per se. I wasn't born in the streets and I had to work my way up. I was born to a pretty much normal family. I found out later in life that the so-called money that my parents had wasn't from them. My grandparents were both wealthy on both sides. And they were actually supporting my family so that we could have the things, myself and my little brother, that we wanted in life. And, you know, I went through life and saw all these, you know, great things that life had to offer, but it was pretty much given to me, but we weren't wealthy. And I don't know if you guys understand that, but I had this, you know, probably fake image of myself back then. So what I'm gonna start out my story is this. Since we're in Vegas, anybody here gamble? Anybody here play poker, maybe not professionally or anything? Anybody gamble? All right. I play professional poker. And one of the things in professional poker, to win at professional poker, a lot of people shoot for what's called the nuts. The nuts means you have the perfect hand. It cannot be beat, okay? But what people don't realize is that the nuts come up probably 1/10 of the time that you're ever gonna win with the best cards. Most of the time, the players that you see in all these online tournaments or the World Series of Poker, they play the hand they're dealt, and they play the player. Okay, they might, you'll see people win hands in poker that have the worst cards because they play the hands they're dealt, and that's all that they can do. And the real professional pokers get to the top by learning how to play the player and play the hands that they're dealt. So, where am I gonna start here? What I mean by that I failed at everything, and you guys can't see my slides here, is that I'm gonna tell you some things that I've done. I've lived in shame, okay? Probably more in the last decade than I did in my whole life. I've been homeless, living in a shelter, as little as 7 years ago. You'll hear about that story a little bit. I was a terrible, terrible spouse to my first wife, my ex-wife, and a terrible father. I was basically a vampire, and you'll hear about that story too. I had a separate life. Everybody saw one life, and I was leading another one at night. And it was unfortunate. I've been a terrible son, as far as, my parents go, relative to immediate family. My family, like you heard, disowned me about 11 years ago, including my son. And that's been going on 11 years for some of the choices that you heard that I made. And everything I'm telling you is because of where you see me here today. I want to kind of bring you down when you hear the stories of what, you guys can actually achieve. Now, I was super obese. You're going to hear my story. Everybody that knows me, if you're looking at a copy of that book, I used to weigh 652 pounds. The reason I know that, the date of surgery, my gastric bypass, February 16th, 1993, that date, they weighed me, and it was a special scale, and I was 652 pounds. So I've had every kind of addiction from food and everything else. I abused alcohol. I picked up my first drink of alcohol at 34 years old, which was my birthday, January 19th, 2002. And within 6 months, my life was completely destroyed. I've used illegal drugs back in the day because I thought I was untouchable and I was living the rock star party lifestyle. And some things were different back then. I've been a terrible business partner to some of my old business partners that have came back around today that actually thought they did me wrong, and they rekindled because they found my book online and they came through and I thought I did them wrong, in that, and you'll hear about that story a little bit. I've lied, cheated, stole back in the day, and pretty much everything you can do. Some of the really great things is when you're homeless and stuff and you're doing that and you're drinking Mad Dog 2020 out of a tent with some homeless people, I've had attempts on my life. I've actually seen death. I've seen death happen right in front of me, not because of sickness, because of violence. I've probably came close to death being in the hospital 50 times. And most of them were self-inflicted. Not suicidal, but yes, I've had those suicidal thoughts and depression and things like that. But a lot of them were putting myself in bad situations that, somebody in their 30s should not be put into. And you'll hear about that a little bit. I've been broken laws. I've been arrested as an adult and spent 14 months of my life in jail about 7, 8 years ago. And come to find out that all the charges were dropped for what they thought I was doing. They didn't know that my income came from network marketing. They thought I was a drug dealer. Go figure. And that's actually a true story. So you're going to hear about that. But what you guys have to realize is that all the mess I just told you, okay, my mess is now my message. And, people can prejudge me. I have people take shots at me on Facebook because everybody's on Facebook and stuff. Some people don't like. The other day, I was on Facebook, and I made some posts. And one of the guys who was in my life about 30 years ago, when I was young, and he was a couple of years older than me, he actually started in on one of my Facebook posts, and I said, this is probably not too smart because my friends are going to attack you, not me. But he said, man, if you really knew the Jon Gillardi that I knew 25 or 30 years ago, and I said to him right on the Facebook wall, I said, man, I haven't seen you in 25 or 30 years. You know how much worse crap I did after that? I said, you got to go meet some of my friends that I've really done bad stuff to so they can bring you up to speed. And I kind of laugh at that kind of stuff, now. And, it used to bother me telling this story because I always had to have a front that people, I had to be that perfect porcelain doll or, I had to be this certain image and stuff like that. And what I realized is that I can't go back and start over. My life is what it was, okay? But I can start today or wherever you're starting from and make a new ending, okay? That ending that I was creating back in the day, I can create from this moment on, this moment on, you can create it. Now, what I want you to realize is that when the story I'm about to hear, everything is gonna be compacted. I'm not gonna go from birth and tell you how I remember being in my mom's womb and stuff like that. I'm gonna go through the real fun details. But what I have to do, and I owe a lot, at the ending of the story, when I jump around, you're gonna hear that I was trying to recreate my life. I had a lot of success at a young age. I left home at 17 years old. I got married at a young age. I was a stockbroker with the Prudential. I was the youngest person ever promoted. I was, a diamond in a company at a young age. All this great success from leaving home. Had a weight problem as well. And when I lost everything in 2002, and my life went from being up here, what I thought, and living this vampire lifestyle to as far down as an individual should ever have to go. When that happened, what I did for 8 years, drinking a gallon of tequila a day, 1.5 liters every day with the shakes, praying to God that I could stop drinking, okay, for one day and know what it's like, all I was trying to do is recreate that life of everything that I did. I wanted to have my son back, my ex-wife back. I wanted to have, my friends back who I was embarrassed about. And what happened is while I was doing that for 8 years and it was like this, it was actually putting me further back. You're not gonna get back. If you've lost things in your life and you're trying to get them back and create that life again that you once had, I'm here to tell you, don't do it, it's not coming back. And it can be 1,000 times better. When about 5 years ago, and I'm gonna fast forward towards the end of the story, which it'll get up to, is I got a Facebook message. I had moved to Montana to a vacation home up there because I was living in Dallas, Texas, and I went up there because I figured that, I know what it is. I'm living in Dallas. This is the party city, everything else out there. If I move up to Montana where they hunt and fish a lot, I said, they probably don't have much alcohol up there. Come to find out, they had alcohol and casinos and hunting. And so most people went and gambled all night, then they got drunk and they went hunting, and it's not a very good mix. So I actually went up there and lived 18 months, and my personality is not Montana. And it actually put me in a very weird situation. And in one summer while I was up there, in the height of my drinking, and I get a Facebook message. And this is the ending of the story, and so you'll see where it's going. And it says, I don't know if you remember me, but our parents and moms used to be best friends. I used to babysit for your little brother, and then something else was in there. And I was drunk, because I was drunk 24 hours a day, and I replied back, of course I remember. First I looked at her picture to make sure I wanted to answer, and then I replied back, and I said, of course I remember you. And I said, how have you been? And she found me through some Facebook friends, mutual friends. And she said, well, I'm doing great, but my mother would really like to reconnect with your mother. Now, what Gina didn't know is that I don't speak to my parents anymore. And they had disowned me for everything I did, but I was gonna reach out and try to do that. So anyway, make a long story short, she put a phone number down, which I thought was her phone number, and to reconnect, our parents, our moms. So the next night I got real drunk, and about 6 o'clock at night, I decided to call that phone number thinking it was Gina's. It wasn't, it was her mother's. And I proceeded to stay on that phone for 6 hours talking about our past lives and what I've done, and she knew I was drunk, but kind of kept that tone down. And I said, well, have Gina call me someday. And I was still trying to recreate my life. I was getting in bad relationships. I was drinking more and more every day. I kept a bottle of tequila next to the bed because when I woke up, this is how it would be. I have to slide a bottle off of my chest and go like this and dry heave to keep it down the first shot and lay in bed for 15 minutes. When that went down, had another one go. So I was I was hospitalized every other week, and they're telling me that if you don't stop this, you're gonna die. So while I'm doing this, I'm putting on this big act for her mother, and I said, tell Gina to call me someday. She said, well, she's going through a divorce after 12 years, but she will. Make a long story short, she called me about 3 weeks later, 2 days before her official divorce date in court. And we started talking. And she knew I was a drunk. I wasn't hiding it very well. But we started talking on the phone, becoming friends. We were spending 5, 6, 7 hours a day on the phone. And it was an old friend, because we've known each other since we were 5 and 7, but I hadn't seen her in 30 years. And she kind of didn't judge me on the phone. She didn't see me in person. And some things started to happen. She invited me out for her birthday to Georgia. I flew there. She witnessed what it was like dealing with me as a drunk. And she saw me basically that last year of my life as a knockdown, drag-out drunk. She rushed me to the hospital on many occasions where the doctor said I had wet brain and I was gonna be put in a nursing home that I was permanently brain damaged, and I popped out of it. 4.6 blood alcohol level, which they've never seen anybody live over a 3.5. And our relationship got tighter. She helped me get off alcohol and everything I was doing. She also helped me realize that I wasn't getting my life like I wanted back, and that I didn't need my life back. I needed to move on. So, after one of my last stints in the hospital, begging me to go to rehab from that when they didn't think I was gonna ever have my brain capacity back, and popping out of it, I decided to go through rehab. And going through that rehab, when I got out and she picked me up from the rehab, driving back and then begging me to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was scared. She hid all the alcohol in the house. And I went home and I was scared. And I had her by my side. And several days, it got not easier. I was still thinking about it all the time in my life. And something came over me. And my life started to change. I started saying, you know what? My past is what it is. It is what it is. I have to deal with it. Let's move on. I never went to another AA meeting. I know some people have conquered alcohol doing that. 1 week turned into several weeks turned into several months turned into a year turned into multiple years. And today, I don't drink at all. Thank you. Now, what you'll find funny is if anybody sees my Facebook posts, and a lot of people here, if you've been in my house, I have more alcohol in my house than most bars. I have Jägermeister machines, I have special refrigerators and stuff, and you'll see people come over, Gina has a couple glasses of wine with that. It's just not in my life anymore, and a lot of things. That ending of that story, once I started to accomplish the alcohol, because that can be anything. Take the word alcohol with whatever you're dealing with, and put whatever you're dealing with in there. When I use it for the alcohol, everything from that little piece that I accomplished one day at a time, stopping drinking alcohol, what was able to accomplish from that is I started recreating my life. Everything, losing a $2 million a year income in another network marketing company because I was looking at another network marketing company, and all of a sudden, coming home on a plane, they took my income. Those types of things that I was going through, all these ridiculous things that I was going through in life, what happened from that day forward that I said it is what it is, the alcohol stopped, the partying stopped, the relationships got better, the finances got better, businesses got better, real friends got better, everything's gotten better. Now, my son just turned 19 on August 31st. I track him everywhere he goes. He doesn't know this. I know every move he makes because I'm sure he hates me to this day, and a lot of people said, you have to prepare yourself because that's something that he might come back into my life someday. And he remembers me as a drunk at 3 weeks before his 8th birthday in 2002. And looking back on everything that I've tried to create and do, I don't know what the ultimate goal is, but what I can tell you is whatever that you're going through and the trials and the tribulations and everything else, it's going to make sense someday. It's going to make sense. Now, since we're doing a kind of a motivational on the story, and I just dropped the coffee on the stage, we'll fix that, is if you're sitting in the audience going through, and take out all your regular problems that you're having, but I want you to put your pure leverage problems or your network marketing, because maybe you're using pure leverage to build your network marketing business or another business, or you're just getting into blogging. If that's your problem, and let's just do it, someday at the end of the road, that light switch is going to go on, and you're going to figure out everything is just going to pop and make sense. I used to pray to God for my life to make sense. When I stopped doing that and just said, it is what it is, and let things just flow in, my life started to make sense. If you try to push it and make it make sense, it's not gonna happen for you. So, now I can go to the beginning of the story. My real last name is not Gillardi, okay? Legally it is and stuff. I'm not saying that I'm this other person, okay? My mom was married before, and I was actually raised, my mom was Jewish and my biological father was Jewish. And my mom divorced my dad because of some of his problems when I was 1 or 2 years old. I don't even know the exact time. My mom was introduced to another gentleman in our building through a little dog that was running around, and she ended up marrying him many, many years ago, and he ended up adopting me. And what I remember is the reason I agreed to that adoption, because I had to legally or something agree to it in front of the judge. I remember being in court that day, is because the earliest memory of life that you have in your life is, say, when your life actually starts. And the earliest memory of my life was my biological dad visiting him one weekend, so I was probably 1 or 2 years old. He had a cat, and he had his new wife. And all I remember is, if everybody remembers those big whiskey glasses, they called them terrariums and stuff for the older people in here, and they put like cactuses in there. I remember he had them. And I was playing with the cat, and I rolled a ball. The cat ran in, slammed the terrarium, and this is all I remember. My dad picking me up, holding to the ceiling, and letting me fall to the ground. That's my first memory of life. And so I was about 1 or 2. And I remember the judge asking me a couple of years later when I was adopted, why do I want this adoption to go through? Why do I want this new person to be my dad? And that was the story I told. So it anchored in there. So, pretty normal family, I told you, so we could skip over that part. My weight. My first addiction, because I'm addicted to everything. I don't care what it is, if they come out. I haven't done, everybody says, I did the weight, I did the alcohol, played around with some, party drugs here and there back in the day. I haven't done crack or heroin yet, so I was figuring, might as well get into that, see if I can accomplish that one too, because of my addictive personality. Don't know if that's a smart thing to do, but my weight. It's funny now because people who see my before and after pictures on Facebook and stuff that I went to junior high school and stuff with, they say to me, we don't remember you having a weight problem. And I remember that being in the back of my head, another memory. And what I always was in high school was the kid who was the chunky kid. I had a shop at Sears, and my parents bought me those husky pants, and I was like 10 or 20 pounds overweight. And I always thought I was the fat kid. I always was the chunky kid and always worried about weight. But my mother always had me on diets. Okay, I don't know if you know this, but I'm 45 years old. 35 years ago, there were liquid diets. I was on Medifast, OptiFast, the cookie diet, everything else since I was 9 or 10 years old. Weight Watchers 50 times, Nutrisystem back in the day, everything else for 20 or 30 pounds. Why? Because my family was embarrassed when we went to our bar mitzvah or a wedding or something that I was the only, my son, that had a weight problem. So weight was always a big issue. So when I left home at 17 years old, I said, I can do what I want. I'm making my own money. And from that point forward until my gastric bypass, I was gaining 80 pounds per year. I actually gained 100 because I was only 5'50". I wasn't that big. Christmas of 1992. And the reason I know that is because I was 6'50" on surgery on February of '93. So I was gaining a lot of weight. So anything that was held back from me, I had a point to prove, and weight was a real issue. And because weight was such an issue at 10 or 20 pounds, it ended up being where I was one of those super obese people. Ended up having my stomach stapled, lost all the weight, gastric bypass, lost 410 pounds in 14 months on the first part of it. So, you know, things were really good, okay? Things were going up. I was making money. I became a motivational speaker. All of a sudden, I started going to Tony Robbins events. You know, met Tony and his first wife, Becky. Back in the day, we were doing a fire walk. Network marketing was going fantastic for me. I retired from the Prudential on a retirement disability that they let me do, and life was good. After all that happened and getting all these promotions, I decided, meeting at a Tony Robbins event in New Jersey in 1998 of February, I met an individual who had a company who was the #1 money earner in a company in Texas for a network marketing company. And that's when things changed. I ended up flying to Texas, falling in love with it, speaking at one of their events, and coming home and telling my wife that we're moving my wife and son to Texas. And we did that over 2 years. And I was gone for 3 or 4 months there. I was gone speaking at events, and I was gone starting some of the drug addiction in party drugs in Dallas, Texas. Went to Dallas, Texas, moved my wife and son, still wasn't into the alcohol, bought this big mansion. There's a place to live in Dallas. Everybody calls it, it's Willow Bend in Dallas. And I said, okay, I'm gonna go in and do the biggest and the best and everything else. And did that. Put my son in the best schools. Deion Sanders was my next door neighbor. My son went to school with his son. And I was the football coach. I was not basketball, I'm a little short. I was the baseball coach for T-ball. My son got into sports. I was on the PTA. And I, at night, would, at that point, become a vampire. After my son went to bed, I would go out, and I'd be in the clubs till 6 o'clock in the morning in Dallas. And I would come home messed up. And then my son would crawl into bed around 7 o'clock before school and wouldn't know anything. And that cycle went over and over and over and over. All of a sudden, my friends started to disown me. Everybody started to walk away from me. And all of a sudden, this life that I was pursuing got a little crazy. When we moved my son and my ex-wife down to Dallas, we thought he was in great schools in New York. We moved down May of 2000, when I finally moved them down. We put him into school, and they tested him. And they came back and they said, your son is at like a negative reading level. I mean, his reading level compared to the kids at this school was well behind. And this is what really put me over the edge and sent me into a spiral, but also where I am partly today because of what could happen in the future. They called in and they asked us, they said, listen, we have some kids that are from overseas and some Asian countries and non-English speaking that are in this class. We're gonna put those kids and your son into a special reading class. Do you mind? And it's a 9-month class during school. And I said, sure, that'd be great. I was a little embarrassed by it, but that's fine. So the school year started, he went to school, everything else. They gave us up-to-date reports, said he was doing great. Right in the highlight of my drinking, trying to be sober, we were invited to go to see an interview with all the kids that were graduating that program. And I guess I was so good at lying and pulling over the wool over my son's eyes, who was living around it. I went to that meeting with my ex-wife, and we sat behind that one-way glass because they didn't want these young kids to be able to see their parents on the other side. And all I could think about was the next drink that I had in the car waiting for me. And I sat back there, but I was paying attention, but I was really fidgety. And I remember looking through the glass, and they started interviewing. My son came up, and they said, go through the reading level and stuff, and they found out he was on a college reading level in 9 months. And I was like, wow, now he can be my son. Now I can be proud and everything else. And then they went on, for some reason, they asked him, so Jonathan, because his name is mine, what do you want to do with your life? And this is coming, they said, out of the mouths of babes. They said, I want to own internet companies and do what my dad does. Now, I'm sitting on the other side of the glass, and I hear that, knowing how bad I feel, but also knowing that my lie that I've been living, he doesn't even notice it. We went home. As soon as I got home, I opened that bottle I had in the trunk, started to drink, and it kind of set me into more and more depression. It went real crazy there for a while. When that kind of happened, I was given an ultimatum that I needed to go to AA by my ex-wife. And that was June of 2002. So I decided to go to AA. And I had all this negative stuff. I was becoming extremely violent. I was doing crazier and crazy things. I had never been arrested before in my life until I moved to Texas. I was arrested 33 times in 30 days. Okay? How does that work? I tried to set the record in one day after 30 straight days of getting arrested for public intox. I walked out of the jail and they kept you in for 8 hours. But I missed midnight by about 7 minutes, so they didn't count it that I actually got arrested 3 times in one day. They actually moved it to the 33rd day. That's how crazy my life was. Getting arrested, I'd walk out of the jail cell for public intox and walk into the bar and the police would be waiting for me. If you pick up that drink, you're arrested. So I decided to go into that AA. And when I went into that AA meeting, I sat there for 30 days. And I listened to all these people's terrible lives. I mean, my life wasn't terrible. I had the cars, I had the houses, I had the money, I had everything else. And I heard all these stories of kind of the stories you're hearing from what I went through, and I'm like, that's not me, but I'm gonna stay here. All my goal is to get that, what they call your first chip, your 30-day chip. And I made it to the 30 days. And I remember, and I don't know why they do this, but if you look at every Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, for some reason, they put them right next to a liquor store. I'm serious. I pulled out of that Alcoholics Anonymous. That was the last thing I remember. I must have got home somehow, and I woke up. I was asleep. And I started walking around, and I'm kicking bottles all over the floor, and nobody's there. The cars are in the garage, everything else, but my wife and son are gone. And I called up my little brother, the last time I ever spoke to him, and I said, where is everybody? And he said, they're gone. And I'm just like, what do you mean they're gone? He said, they've been gone for 2 weeks. And I say, he goes, you're just waking up? I'm like, yeah. And I said, you need to speak to me and tell me what. He goes, I don't have a brother anymore. And that was the last time I ever spoke to him. Come to find out, I've been blacked out for 2 weeks. I had gotten violent and started making threats. And the last thing my son said to my ex-wife was, we have to get out of here because Daddy might kill you. And that was where the whole 8 years of my life went more and more and more and more down. I went through ups, I went through downs. I locked myself in the house for 2 years. I had a beard down to here. I didn't shower for 6 months at a time. I couldn't drive a car. I ordered Domino pizzas so I could give the kid cash after he worked and bring me cases of alcohol. And he had loads of fun every other night bringing me that. And I did that for 2 straight years. I was at the end of my rope, and I didn't know what to do. I was too embarrassed since I lived in Dallas, Texas, and there was tons of my friends who were top-level network marketers that if they saw me, they'd be embarrassed. Come to find out years later, they knew I was in trouble because everybody either thought I was dead or I was overseas, because that's what I had told people when they had called or my message, that I was overseas and I was away. Fast forward, jail, doing everything from that, released from jail. Come home, released from jail, and I see my timer is counting down here. And when I get released from jail, after 14 months, I had no way to get home. I had no way to get home, and I walked about 12 hours to my home, broke into my home, and I got a call within a few minutes of breaking in my home, because they were watching it, saying the charges was dropped, but all your stuff is still seized. They said, either you leave that house or we're putting a warrant out for your arrest. And I couldn't understand that. I walked back down to downtown Dallas, walked around for 2 days, and ended up finding some homeless people and asking them, how do you be homeless? And they said, come with us, and proceeded to get drunk with them. After doing that, going to get a job at Joe's Crab Shack in the west end of Dallas, never working for somebody since Prudential, as I used to be a top motivational speaker and a top network marketer and everything else, just embarrassed that somebody was gonna walk in and see me being a waiter in that place in Dallas because I couldn't get out of there. Everything was seized, my life was in turmoil. I decided to fake a suicide attempt so that they would put me in a rehab because I didn't know what to do. Because I tried calling my parents for help, and they said, get yourself some help. I said, I need help from you. They said, no, you don't, and they hung up on me. Went through that rehab, and everything that you've heard ended up in halfway houses and doing everything else, hiding, drinking, once in a while doing illegal drugs, doing all that stuff. And just for 8 years of my life doing that craziness. And now, when you look forward and you heard the ending part of my story, finally, after I had enough money, found out some things happened and got the opportunity to get a vacation home in Montana to get away from the alcohol in Dallas, went up there, and then you heard where my life ended up today. You know, they say let go, let God. I'm not a very religious person. I'm more spiritual. Raised Jewish, then raised Jewish and Catholic because of me being adopted, and then becoming a Christian in 1998. And I'm not a perfect Christian. I'm still not a perfect person. My fiance will tell you, because she goes to a lot of these events, when you meet me, okay, or you hear Mark talk nice about me, or you hear all this stuff, she comes back, she says, man, if they see you walking around, going to the mailbox in your underwear or something like that and stuff like that, because I'm a real person. But here's what I want to tell you. No matter where you are, if you're going through challenges in life, if you're going through your challenges in your business, if you're going challenges in your relationships, okay, if you had it good once before, okay, that's great. Cherish those memories. Don't try to recreate what you had before. Let go, go with the flow, and recreate your life and make a new future. Because I'm telling you this, guys, you're gonna get knocked down in life over and over and over and over and over. And I still get knocked down all the time. The difference in me getting knocked down now and knocked down before is now I get up and I look life in the face and I say, you know what? You hit like a little bitch. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.